Welcome to the place where silence remembers every scream, where shadows applaud your arrival, and where the very air hums with the memory of every underestimated soul that turned fate upside down. You didn't come here to be soft. You didn't come here to be liked. You came here to change the ending. And now, look at the ruins behind you. Look at what you walked through. They said that was the smartest one, the mastermind, the puppet master. They whispered about how untouchable they were, how they calculated 5 steps ahead, how no one could outthink them. But now, they don't whisper anymore. Now they stare. Not at them, at you. Because you didn't just beat their smartest move. You crushed it. You silenced it. You cracked it open, exposed its weakness, and made the genius look foolish. You made intelligence tremble. And the best part? You didn't flinch. Because there's a darkness in you that isn't evil. It's pure focus. It's silence forged into precision. It's pain converted into power. And in a world full of loud minds and weak hearts, you stood still. You read every move. You let them think they were in control. You watched them build their trap, brick by brick, thinking it would break you. But you waited, you studied, you understood. And then, just when they were at their highest point, you flipped the board, with no warning, with no kindness, with no hesitation. That's why they can't look you in the eye anymore, because now they know what real strength looks like. It doesn't announce itself, it arrives. They underestimated how deep your silence went. They thought silence meant weakness. They forgot silence is where thunder sleeps. And now they know. You are thunder wrapped in skin. You didn't scream when they mocked you. You didn't react when they moved against you. Because you knew your time was coming. And when it did, you didn't bring noise. You brought truth. And truth didn't need a speech. It needed a single move. One move that shattered their entire illusion of control. And you made it. You made the smartest one look painfully stupid. Not because you wanted to humiliate, but because you knew they needed the lesson. Because some people only learn when the ground is ripped from beneath them. They called you emotionless, ruthless, cold. But what they didn't understand is that you're not heartless. You're focused. There's a difference. You feel every battle. You carry every scar. You just don't wear them like jewelry. You wear them like armor. And now the battlefield is silent. Not because there are no enemies left, but because the smart ones finally realized they don't belong here anymore. Not with you. Not in your league. Not in your war. They miscalculated your will. They thought this was about ego. They thought this was about proving a point. But this was never about proving anything. It was about ending something. And you did. You ended the doubt. You ended the whispers. You ended the illusion of their superiority. You burned their blueprints, shattered their strategy, and walked through their fortress as if it were paper. Because you didn't need noise. You didn't need a crown. You didn't need applause. You needed results. And now you have them. You crushed their smartest move, and you left no mercy. Not because you're cruel, but because mercy is for equals, and they were never your equal. They called it their masterpiece, their grand plan, a move they believed would break you from the inside out. Every step they took was guided by arrogance dressed as confidence. They didn't just want to win, they wanted to dismantle you. Quietly, cleverly, perfectly. But you saw through it. Because you've danced with disappointment before. You've eaten at the same table as betrayal. You know what it feels like when the ones who call themselves brilliant build traps with smiling faces. And while they were busy playing chess, you were reading their hands, studying their rhythms, memorizing every breath they took before they made a move. They thought they were playing you, but they were only exposing themselves. And when the time came, you didn't rush. You didn't react. You executed. Their perfect plan collapsed under the weight of your patience, and that's what they'll never understand. Patience is the most terrifying kind of power, because it doesn't rush to prove itself. It waits, and then it devours. You made them look stupid, not because you wanted to mock them, but because their ego built a tower too tall, and all you did was remove the bottom brick. Everything else? It was gravity doing its job. They wanted you to panic. You didn't. They wanted you to break. You didn't. They wanted you to question yourself. You did, but only for a moment. And then you remembered who you are, and in that memory, you sharpened your mind. You stood straighter. You moved quieter, and when you struck, they didn't even see it coming. Because that's what true strength looks like. It's invisible until it's not. And when it arrives, it doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. Now, they're left with silence. Not yours, theirs. Their once proud voices are now uncertain. Their once clever glances now avoid eye contact. You showed them the cost of playing games with someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. But make no mistake, this isn't revenge. This isn't pettiness. This is clarity. This is the sound of someone who was once counted out stepping back into the ring with fire behind their eyes and steel in their bones. You didn't just beat their move, you made it irrelevant. You crushed it so thoroughly, so strategically, that they now question whether they were ever as smart as they believed. And that's the part that will haunt them, because bruises fade. But doubt? That lingers. You planted doubt in the mind of the one who thought they were untouchable. You shattered the illusion of superiority. And now, you're not just feared, you're respected. Not for your noise, not for your size, but for your mind, for your control, for your ruthless focus when it mattered most. They thought they were dealing with a fighter, but they were facing a tactician. And you played the long game. You didn't need the loudest voice. You didn't need their approval. You didn't need their recognition. You built your power in the shadows, sharpened your instincts in silence, and now you stand at the top, not by accident, but by strategy. Let them remember that. Let them sit with the fact that you beat them at their own game. And not with chaos, not with rage, but with precision. That's what rattles them now. You didn't just win, you undid them. What they don't teach you is that power doesn't scream, it whispers. And now your name is a whisper, a shadow that walks before you, a warning they pass around quietly, because saying it too loud feels like summoning something they can't handle. You didn't just destroy their plan, you dismantled their confidence. You cracked the foundation they built their identity on. They weren't just playing a game, their entire reputation was stitched into that move, their entire belief system, their pride, their legacy. And now it's rubble at your feet, and they can't understand how someone they overlooked, someone they thought they had cornered, someone they believed was less strategic, could orchestrate such a cold, clean takedown. But you know how, because you trained for this, you bled for this, you sacrificed moments no one saw, nights where the weight felt unbearable, days where quitting whispered your name, and silence was your only companion. While they rehearsed victories in their minds, you rehearsed resilience. You built your mind like a fortress. You turned pain into patterns, setbacks into studies, and failure into fuel. That's what they didn't factor in. They thought this was about intelligence, but this was about will, and that's why you crushed them. Not because you were louder, faster, or even smarter, but because you were hungrier. They played to impress. You played to survive. And in a war between pride and hunger, hunger always wins. Now they walk slower, talk softer, second guess every decision, because you weren't just a loss on their record. You were a recalibration of reality. You reminded them that no plan survives contact with someone who's been forged in fire. You reminded them that when you strip away all the ego, all the theatrics, all the mind games, all that's left is execution. And you execute like time is running out, because in your mind it always is. That's the difference. They had time. You had urgency. They had luxury. You had necessity. They moved like they could afford mistakes. You moved like every move mattered, and now you walk through the ashes with quiet footsteps. Not because you're hiding, but because you don't need to speak anymore. Your actions are echoing in places your words could never reach. They feel it. Their team feels it. Even those who watch from the sidelines feel it, because something changed in the air after you won. Something irreversible. You didn't just win a game. You shifted the power dynamic. You pulled the mask off what they called brilliance. And you showed the world that true intelligence doesn't flaunt itself. It waits. It learns. It strikes with no warning. And you did all of that without mercy, because mercy belongs to battles between equals. And now there are none. Now people look at you differently, not just with awe, but with calculation. They're wondering if you saw them too, if you read their moves, if you've already dissected their weaknesses, because now they know you don't just fight opponents, you study them. And when you're done studying, you don't just defeat them, you deconstruct them. This isn't about celebration. You don't need applause. This is about understanding what you've become. You've become the measure, the line others are now compared to. You are the blueprint breaker, the one who proves that no plan is invincible, no mind is unbeatable, and no amount of reputation can shield someone from truth when truth comes wrapped in ruthless precision. And they will remember you, not just because you won, but because you made them doubt themselves. And that is the deepest kind of cut, the one that makes them question who they were before they met you. They thought it would end with your win. They assumed your silence was closure. But that's what separates you from them. They celebrate. You calculate. Because to them, this was a battle. To you, it was a signal, a shift, a message that says, you've arrived, not as a guest, not as a challenger, as a force. And now the air bends differently when you walk into the room. People shift in their seats. Eyes follow you, not out of admiration, but out of caution. Because once you destroy what they call untouchable, you're no longer part of the conversation. You become the center of it. That's the gravity of what you did. You didn't just dismantle a plan. You broke certainty. And nothing scares people more than uncertainty, walking around with confidence. Because they can't predict what they don't understand, and they don't understand you. They don't understand how you didn't fold under pressure, how you stayed silent when insulted, how you responded with fire when cornered, and how, when the so-called mastermind revealed their hand, you outplayed them with a whisper. No rage, no show, just strategy and timing, as cold as midnight and as sharp as a blade they never saw. Now they've stopped underestimating you. But it's too late. because the version of you they ignored is gone. Gone is the one who second-guessed. Gone is the one who explained themselves. Gone is the one who waited to be seen. What stands in their place is someone who no longer seeks validation, someone who knows the weight of silence, someone who uses stillness like a weapon and calm like a countdown. You used to want them to understand you. Now you just want them to remember you, because your legacy won't be built on noise. It'll be built on the wreckage of those who thought they were smarter, those who thought strategy was a substitute for spirit, those who thought calculation could defeat character, and those who thought a clever trap could contain a storm. But they were wrong, because you are the storm, not the kind that makes headlines, the kind that redefines landscapes. You don't just win, you change the climate. You don't just compete, you reset the standard. And once you've reset the standard, you stop chasing. You start leading. That's what terrifies them now. It's not just that you beat them, it's that now they know you're still getting better. That this wasn't even your final form. That this was only the beginning of something darker, sharper, more refined. Because you didn't just take the win. You studied every weakness in the process. You didn't just see how they played. You saw how everyone plays. And while they lick their wounds, you're already preparing for the next move, the next challenger, the next threat. Because you're not fueled by revenge, you're fueled by legacy. And legacy requires one thing above all: consistency. Anyone can win once, anyone can rise once, but not everyone stays. You're going to stay, not because the world made room for you, but because you carved your own space into the walls they tried to keep you out of. And now, every brick you broke is proof that brilliance without humility leads to downfall. That planning without presence leads to collapse. That intelligence without resilience is just theory dressed as confidence. They had the theory. You had the truth. And truth always survives. But now that you've won, now that you've ended what needed to be ended, you face something even more dangerous: comfort. Because comfort is the final enemy, the one that whispers, "You've done enough," the one that offers a seat when you were born to walk, the one that praises you for stopping, when stopping was never part of your DNA. So remember this: the smartest one fell because they got comfortable, because they started thinking applause meant security, because they believed their own hype more than they feared your silence. Don't become them. Let your win sharpen you. Let your dominance deepen your discipline. Let your silence grow louder, because if you've come this far and made the smartest one look painfully stupid, just imagine what happens when you push even further. When your aim is no longer to destroy false kings, but to build an empire no one saw coming. One that doesn't need to speak to be heard. One that doesn't need to rise to prove anything, because the ground itself shifts when you move. You are not here to be remembered. You are here to become the reason they'll never forget. They thought they were the final boss, but you were the one who rewrote the level. They brought their best move. You crushed it, and you did it with no mercy. Now, walk forward, not because they fear you, but because they finally understand you. You were never playing their game. You were building your own board, and now you own it. So now, the smoke has cleared, the battlefield lies quiet, and the pieces are scattered. Their strategy, the one they were so proud of, is now just a broken memory, lying at your feet. And what remains? Not noise, not chaos. Certainty. The certainty that when pressure peaked, when silence screamed, and when everyone thought it was over for you, you were just getting started. They underestimated how long you've been in the dark, but you didn't just survive there, You trained there. You listened. You learned. You became what they can't read, what they can't predict, what they can't replicate. Because you're not just strong, you're unshakable. You're the one who doesn't just answer questions. You become the question no one knows how to solve. You're the glitch in their system, the flaw in their perfect plan, the rule they can't bend. And now they know. You're not here for revenge. You're not here to dance on ruins. You're here to build from them. You're here to turn their failed ambition into your launch pad. You're here to do what they couldn't, lead without breaking, rise without asking, and win without noise. Because the truth is, you don't need to prove anything anymore. You already proved it the moment their smartest move shattered under your silence. You proved it when the one they thought couldn't be touched was disassembled by your patience. You proved it when they stopped seeing you as the challenger and started recognizing you as the ceiling they can't break. And now, you're not just a competitor. You're a constant. You're the pressure in the room before any major decision. You're the image they see when they second guess. You're the ghost in every future strategy meeting, every plan they draw, every backup they build. Because now, they build with you in mind. That's legacy. Not the kind written in history books, the kind carved into people's minds. And what's next for you? Forward, always forward, not to chase anything, not to prove anything, but because movement is your nature, growth is your rhythm, and excellence is your obligation. You're not chasing power. You are power, the silent kind, the kind that walks in, says nothing, and yet reorders the entire room. You already crushed their best move. So imagine what happens when you haven't even shown yours yet. Imagine what happens when the version of you that did this was just the beginning, just the rough draft, just the early signal of something far more dangerous. Because evolution doesn't come with noise, it comes with time. And time is something you've already mastered. So let them worry, let them replan, let them talk louder and move faster, thinking they're getting somewhere. You already know the truth. They're chasing something you've already buried. You are no longer part of their game. You are the end of it. So let this moment live, not as your peak, but as your proof. The proof that no matter how smart they think they are, no matter how clever the trap, no matter how high the tower, you will always be the one who climbs higher, moves quieter, and strikes harder. You made their smartest one look painfully stupid. You crushed their masterpiece without mercy. And now, you walk alone, not because no one's with you, but because no one else can follow. You are the outlier, the unteachable, the quiet threat with the loudest results. And this was just the beginning. You didn't just win. You redefined what winning looks like. You crushed their smartest move, not with noise, not with chaos, but with clarity and calculation. You dismantled what they believed was invincible, and you did it with such quiet intensity that the echo still haunts their thoughts. You made the mastermind look like an amateur, not because you sought to embarrass, but because you were built for something deeper than pride. You were built for dominance, and now the silence that follows your victory isn't emptiness. It's respect. Earned, not demanded. Unshakable, not temporary. So let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them wonder how they never saw you coming. Because the game is no longer about who moves the fastest or talks the loudest. It's about who understands the long war. And you already won that. You are not just a name anymore. You are the quiet storm that exposed every weakness they thought they'd hidden. And from this moment on, they don't plan around their next move. They plan around you. Because once you crush the smartest one without mercy, you become the one they never challenge again.